I believe we're live.
Tell us in the chat.
So if you guys can see us, please let us know. It says we're live, but I don't know if we're actually getting an image through. So let's see what happens. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright.
I'm alive. I'm alive.
You're alive.
And we are here. Oh, you can see we're having. Good thing he talks with his hands. And that looks like I have sound.
We can hear Jeff moving in his chair, though.
Okay, so yeah, it looked like I needed to pull over the secondary. Okay, so hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to my shop. I think we have audio now. And so I've been telling this is the first time I've done a live interview in this shop. And so before I had my big computer that I did all of my editing on, and it's a really heavy-duty, powerful computer that can do a crazy amount of video work. We're trying to run it all through the cheap laptop that I have, and we've been running into issues. So I think it's working now.
Some can hear, some can't.
They might just be from later on, from earlier, because some people are going to have a long buffer lag on this, and some people won't.
Okay, wait. So where's the one that...
So open up that Zoom. Yep. No, sorry, the ABS, that wheel there.
Oh, there it went.
Yeah,
okay.
you can click between main and Zoom
Okay.
to see Jeff. Yeah, so we're having a lot of fun here tonight. Welcome to the craziness that is Wood by Wright. I have with me Jeff Warshafski, and he is the maker of Reed Tools. And every now and then he comes to me with a crazy idea. And it was, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, you came and said, I want to make a honing guide. And I said, yes. Why in the world do you want to make one of those? There are hundreds of them out there. Why does there need to be another one? And he proposed a few ideas to me that I thought were kind of outlandish and an odd idea. But if you know Jeff, you just let him go, and he'll come up with something that's like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. I never thought of that before. So I wanted to actually kind of turn this over to Jeff and let him explain the whole thought process that went through with this, because coming up with this was kind of a wild ride, because we have prototypes all over the place of different things to come up with one jig that can do something a little bit different from what others have done. So I'm going to turn this over to Jeff and let him explain some things.
All right, Jeff, you're up.
You're up now.
All right, awesome. So why would a guy, that's me,
His head is not in.
for the last 50 years, freehand sharpen. This is how I sharpen. I find secondary and I sharpen. And that works wonderfully for me forever. I've been doing that. Why would I all of a sudden want a jig? Well, two reasons. First, when I sell a plane, and I will be selling planes, I want it to look very perfect. It's a visual thing for me. And while I can freehand and do things, I want it a little bit nicer. And there's a second reason. My left hand, arthritis, elbow issues, I'm old, sort of start me thinking about this. And I've always thought about jigs. Honest, I've only owned 2 jigs in my life, and they've only been recent purchases. One lasted 10 minutes on my bench. I sold it to a friend. The other one's still here, but I never warmed up to it. So that's what started me thinking about this idea. And then one day I was using the other jig, and I rotated the jig 90 degrees and started using it. And all of a sudden it started to be similar to the way I would grab a chisel. I would grab a plane blade and work. And I started to really like that. And that launched me. That was my eureka moment, maybe we could say. That launched me. So I started doing things. And I said, I gotta make something. So believe it or not, this is some PVC pipe, Home Depot, some stuff cobbled together real quick. And I started, this is actually what I started. I quickly sketched and I made that up. And had all sorts of issues, but it was a start. So then I started thinking about how I wanted to do this, what I wanted to do. And I had the idea that, what if I used Corian, countertop material? It's a waste stream product at the shop I work at. There's tons of it in the dumpster every day. I thought I could use this stuff. So I made some up, just some blocks. You glue it together, drilled some holes, and I started making some jigs. And some would just bear here. I put some ball bearings. These are actually called transfer bearings. I put some of these on, and I played with different things. Send them to James. Hey, play with these. See what happens when you do this. And the more I used it, the more I didn't like them. It didn't quite do what I wanted to do. Because when I started this, I set up a series of goals. One is I wanted this to work on all my plane blades and all my chisels. So I've got, over in my toolbox, I've got Stanley 3 through 8. And some of them are wider than my stones. I'm a Waterstone guy. I do have some diamonds, but I'm a Waterstone guy, just have been and staying there. And I would rotate, and that started to work. That started to do what I wanted it to do. And then I looked at my chisels, and I've got some chisels that come to profile a point. I've got chisels that are tapered. I've got chisels that have a dome shape to it. And there's many, many other chisels, and they have shapes to them. So whatever the jig was that I had to do, had to grab it on the sides. I wanted to grab on the sides. And while these did grab on the sides, they didn't grab very well. They didn't work well. So I gave this to James. James had some opinions, gave me great feedback. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make them out of bronze. I make some stuff out of bronze a lot. Bronze is easy to work with. So I made this up. And I put 3 points of contact in there. I don't know how well we can see all this. So I could grab it in 3 points when I squeeze it. That started to work, except there's a lot of work machining this. I've got to true up all my surfaces. I need registered surfaces to drill my holes. There's 1, 2, 3. Now there's 4, 5, 6, 7 holes in some of these, 6 holes in another. Each hole has many operations, and it was like, wow, what have I designed myself into? But it's working. It's working. Some are tapped, some of the holes are tapped, and stuff like that. So the design process ended up with these bronze using a wear guide, a hardened wear guide on here to rotate on. You could use it on a stone in a very traditional manner. I didn't like that. I ended up going 90 degrees. I find it much easier to use. And we could even ketchup bottle with water, very important. We can even do it a traditional manner. a couple of pieces of wood and a slide, and we can use that for folks that want to do it. And that's how it evolved, and that's where it's going. You can make wooden blocks in and do this is a 45-degree Japanese skew chisel. You can go to 45 degrees if you want. This is out of a wooden plane, actually made by Reed, believe it or not, in New York. So I had to buy that. But you could do a blade like this easily with a couple of wooden blocks. So what I was trying to accomplish is, for me, the most important thing was a honing guide that can pretty much cover my shop. I want to be able to do a lot of different things. And then they get made, and we're going to see what other folks happen to like. That was my approach. Set up some goals and see where it comes out to. So James, you've played with this a little bit already. You've got some likes and dislikes, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, from my point, it was
there we go.
It was kind of a wild thing for me, because Jeff contacted me, and I do freehand. I mean, I'm freehand all the way with everything I do, and I have a Veritas Mark II that I generally use, and it works really well. I like it for most everything. But when he said, I'd like to offer a honing guide, I didn't know if it was something that I would really get behind, because I don't know if it's something I could show. And so he started sending me some of these prototypes. Let me switch over and show you some of these. So some of them, this is one of the early ones with a simple piece of Corian, and it would pinch the blade in between, but it would register on these, and that worked kind of nice. But this is so flimsy and cheap, and it wasn't balancing quite right. And so the next thought is, well, you make it a little bit bigger, and a little heavier, and a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, and find out where they are. And then this one, I don't know if you could see this from when he had the ball bearing casters on here. But the interesting thing with this is not that it is a jig that clamps from the side. There's a bunch of them out there that do that. But this one is designed so that the iron can move across the iron's edge. So rather than, where did I put the other one? It's over here. That's why. Rather than having the iron moving back and forth this way when you're sharpening, you can turn it 90 degrees and slide it across this. And that really wouldn't have been a big thing for me, other than at the time he was bringing it, I had just gotten into using the microscope and seeing the edges under the microscope. And if you use it normally, and you run it perpendicular to the edge of the blade, you end up under the microscope with this serration all the way across. And you have all these basically tiny little fingers sticking out, and those fingers tend to snap off. Whereas if you run it at 90 degrees and run it across the plate, your scratch pattern goes across the edge. Rather than creating those fingers, you get a very, very thin edge. And you can get a sharper, keener edge at a lower grit. Which I found to be kind of interesting, and I found that if I'm doing it on, I did a video a while ago on sharpening on concrete, and you can actually use a block of concrete to do it, but I found I could only get it to work if I ran at 90 degrees, if I went across this way. If I turned the blade and went perpendicular to the blade as I was doing it, the concrete would make these very large, heavy fingers that were hard to get rid of. But if I turned it 90 degrees, I could actually sharpen and get off of concrete, which was kind of wild to me. And so the idea of having one that would be able to turn it 90 degrees just kind of clicked something in my brain. So, okay, I'll suspend disbelief for a moment and experiment. And so Jeff sent me a bunch of these, and my feedback to him was, I don't like it. I can't get behind that. I'm sorry. But Jeff's like, well, let me try this.
Yep.
And so he tried a few things, and then he sent me this one. And so this one has the...
Sorry, your voice
the double stick we're getting. This one has the wear points on here, but it feels good because it's got some weight to it, and it gives you a wider balance on here. And then so the first time I thought these pins, that the iron sat on top of those pins and pinched between the brass plates. But it actually sits on top of the bars. Sorry, this is the early prototype that kind of clicks. And it sits on top of the bars and gets pinched between those 3 contact points. And you can see it doesn't actually touch the brass on either side and clamps between it. And the nice thing about that is it gives you the exact same registration points every time. And even if you have a domed or a beveled top, it still will register the same points every time. And that was kind of interesting. It holds it nicely, and this is kind of interesting. And then, here, let me bring this over. So this is one of these things that I love it when I'm wrong. And
wait.
Don't realize that. But there's every now and then there's something that comes across that just kind of is mind blowing. And so he sent these pieces of laminate. Let me set this actually to the right height. Loosen it up. And I haven't yet made blocks, because you can set a jig on here with a block to put it on there and know exactly what your angle is every time. Or you can just adjust it down like that. And then with this, now, I can set it on here, and I can go across the plate rather than having it going this way and the scratch patterns leading that. And so this is something I have been playing with and experimenting with, seeing what the difference is. And having this contact point is so wide and so stable that with a little bit of down pressure on here, it holds itself. So I'm getting a really clean edge every time. There's no rocking or instability issues in this. And having it with that heavy brass on there, and I don't know, I just really, this is weird to me, because I don't like jigs. But this thing really intrigues me, and this is a lot of fun to play with. And so, yeah, Jeff, you've done it again. You've made me like something I didn't think I'd like. So, yeah, that's kind of my journey.
Well, it's a challenge. You're changing your what you're doing. It is a little odd, it's a little alien. That's for sure.
Well, and the other thing for me is that some of you may have noticed my hands are not terribly stable. And I've been,
just your hands.
I've been shaky. Yeah, I've been shaky all my life. But it's one of those things that it will get worse over time, and I know it. And at some point, that shakiness is probably going to cost me my job. I don't know when that will be, but it's one of those things that I start thinking about. Is this going to allow me to do woodworking longer if I'm able to have a jig that works for my style, but I can still do it with a shaky hand? Because I know at some point I'm not going to be able to freehand anymore. And that kind of intrigues me. So, yeah, thank you, Jeff. So if anyone has questions, we will be getting to a Q&A in a minute. Go ahead and throw those in the chat, and we'll try and pull those up.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Jeff?
No, people with water stones might be thinking right away, well, heck, I've got to flatten my water stone, and then I have to, what do? I have to flatten it. Well, I just simply put a plane on here, plane the wood, I'm back to the surface I need to be. I've noticed some tolerance in what can be done, so I don't think that's a big drawback. Obviously, on diamond stones, you can move a piece of plastic around. You can get about half of a stone, a water stone, about half of the width. Take it out, slide it out, little tight there, and rotate it. And you can use the other. There we go. The other half of the stone, you're using the full length. You end up using most of the stone. Your wear pattern will be a little different. Most of the jigs I see, you're using a smaller portion of the stone in the length. So there's some benefits there. Cool. What are some of the questions?
Yeah, and one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm actually building a new sharpening station.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
And when I do that, this is because originally I was planning on building a large sharpening bench, basically, and having this built into the top. So I'd have my stones built into my bench top. because that's something I've wanted for a while. I still have this one that I can carry around and move different places, but to have one that's actually built into the top. And this suddenly made me think, oh, wait a second, what if the top wasn't wood, but if I got some laminate or plastic sheeting to actually be the top surface and made it perfectly level with the stones on top? Yeah, that's kind of a fun idea. So I'm going to have to play with that idea.
I'm hoping people experiment and see how something like this would work for you. I mean, you could also start to even use some of the traditional guides in some of this way as well. There's a lot of guides out there. I took a look.
Yeah.
And you did a survey on how many people use guides and not. Refresh my memory, there was 40-50% folks in your survey are using guides as well?
It was more than I expected. It was, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere around like 55%. I could be wrong, but I don't remember. But,
yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you wanting to know, here's the final product. I don't know if we actually showed this, but this is what. Oop, get that out of the way. Focus. There we go. So this is what is currently on sale, and it's got the 3 wear points in there. Kind of a funky, different design. So yeah. What questions we got?
Not necessarily, I think, anything related. There was one about a block, something. Hang on.
Yeah, Jeff, what's the name of the, there's another jig where it clamps the other side with big wheels.
Big wheels. There's a guy out of England, Richard Kell, Kell, makes one that's similar. It's a fantastic tool. It's great for very traditional. If you hold the wheels, you can turn it 90 degrees. I think I do have one. I can't tell you where it is right now.
Oh, here you go.
Sorry, shop's a bit of a mess.
The question was, do you use a stop block to set the angle?
Yes. Yeah, and
good question.
I was going to set up one of those ahead of time. Do you have one, Jeff?
I've got a line on my bench. I'm not a guy that's critical about his angle, so I used a magic cube set up registering off this face, found 25 and 30, flipped it over, put a pencil line. That's close enough for me. That's how I did it. You certainly could make a block of wood, be more fussy, set up a few different angles. That's traditionally how a lot of these jigs are set up.
Yeah. That's why I was going to make a block of wood and actually have it. It's a cube, but not actually a cube because each of the 3 dimensions are different. And so you can actually put the cube on at any of those 3 dimensions to match it up to the edge. But in playing with it, I have found that it really doesn't take that much time to set it on here, get down on the edge, and eyeball it to what I want, right about there, and lock it down close, check it again, and that gets me what I want. And it's just that much work to check the angle, and it works really well. Yeah, I was wanting to build, because Jeff was showing the angle blocks that you basically make a block that has the 3 holes of the 3 rods, and then you cut it at whatever angle you want to sharpen it at, and you can actually grab the iron at an angle. So if you want to do it skewed, that works really well. But he had sent me the STL files so I could 3D print a block, and then you can cut the block at whatever you want. And so in the slicer program, I just say I want 23 degrees, slice the block at 23 degrees, and print them out and put them in. Unfortunately, my printer is currently down, so I was wanting to have one out for tonight, but I wasn't able to get that out. But kind of cool. Oh, that was the other thing we didn't talk about.
Yeah, if anybody wants that file, no problem. We'll give it to you. You do have some geometry issues. This block should have been wider for this chisel and stuff. But you're gonna need a few blocks if you have a bunch of skewed chisels.
Yeah, the other thing we didn't mention is a lot of times you have a problem with doing really thin irons. And that's one of the things that people don't like about the Veritas Mark II. So I can grab this.
Do you want to be on a different camera?
Oops, sorry. Yes, this one. And I can slide this one out. This is a 1/8 inch chisel. I can lock that in here. Set it down. And I can pick the angle. Lock it down. And just like that, I can do an 1/8 inch chisel. So you can do a really fine little chisel that it locks it the exact same as it would a full plane iron. Or I can go all the way up to this beast on my Cooper's plane. Let me turn this around. And come out. There we go. It's wide enough that I can sharpen my 3 1/8 inch Cooper's iron. It actually goes up to 4 inches. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I don't know how many will be able to do 4 inches down to 1/16 inch. What other questions we got?
So Warren wants to know how heavy it is, thinking postage cost to Australia, and could Jeff maybe make an aluminum version?
As to
Notice
shipping,
the aluminum version.
yeah, as to shipping, it's 1.2 pounds. And the shipping to Australia, I want to say was $32, $35, something like that. It automatically will calculate international shipping online. It has to go priority because it's over $1, so I can't send it a cheaper rate. It's over £1, so it has to go priority. But it's not that much more. It's about the same as the brass knobs. What do you think, Jeff? You want to make an aluminum one?
No, thank you. I like the weight. I like the weight and how it, especially when you've got a big timber framing chisel or something. These always, when I was freehand sharpening, it wasn't balanced well. I didn't like it. It was a very fussy sharpen, and this gives it a nice platform in order to work off of. So I like the weight. So I'm gonna stay with that.
Yeah, here I'm showing my slick.
Every time you giggle.
I do.
No, as James is setting that up, one of the things I was thinking about, I use this as a honing guide, and part of my design process was, well, what if people wanted to go coarser stones, and what if, and what if, and what if? So I had to consider lots of those things. That's why you could use a piece of laminate or a piece of, this is the Teflon enclosed plastic, PTFE. You could put this down on here, and you've got a surface that it just slides and guides on so nicely. You can work in this, you could work this all throughout your stone. It just slides. It's a little slippery. Sometimes forms a suction with the water, and you're using a lot of your stone. Nice surface to work off of.
Yeah, here.
Right, hang on.
This one's kind of interesting.
You're on. Oh, I mean.
So this is my slick, and my slick actually tapers. It's thick here and gets thinner and thinner as it goes back. So if I have a regular one that clamps from the sides, it won't do it because this edge and this edge are not parallel. And then also it's got a slight taper, a slight dome to the top of this, so I can't use my Veritas Mark II on this. But this one, it will keep it 90 degrees to the 2 pins, so it goes across and it looks a little bit funky, but that's because it is referencing off of this edge, and then the 1 pin on this will balance to whatever, and so it'll still clamp onto something with a tapered edge. Kind of nifty. What other questions we got?
But then how would you actually hold it?
Well, for something like this big, you need to make it heavier. You need more brass up here. Yeah.
It still is a challenge with the big timber framing stuff and the big.
This one's still heavy enough. At this weight, you take the stone to the tool rather than the tool to the stone. What else we got?
Hang on. Will those 3D printed blocks be for sale eventually?
We will give you the STL file if you want it. I could sell them. The problem with that is there are no standard skew angles, and so I would have to sell 30, 40 different styles, and it's not worth. There aren't enough people wanting to buy them that it'd be worth stocking all of those angles. But yeah, if you have a 3D printer, grab the STL file and you can slice it at whatever angle you want and snip it out. Or just grab a block of wood, drill those 3 holes, and then cut it to whatever angle you want. It's not something you have to 3D print.
And if you notice this blade, the edges are not parallel on this antique blade. So this block needs to be to accommodate the taper as this angle happens here as well. So that needs more work, but that's to show the concept.
What else we got?
Someone asked earlier, the pins seem like they could be tricky to get consistently set right, especially as people age and eyesight changes. It could be wrong, but just wondering.
No, that's actually the nice part is those 3 pins, because it's just 3 pins, it automatically centers itself. You put it in there and it locks its belt in place. It's not something you actually have to position at all. It just, because it's 3 points of contact. It's like a stool that has 3 legs. It doesn't matter what the ground is. You set it down and it's flat. It's not going to rock on you. A 3-legged stool can't rock. And so it's the same concept. At 3 points of contact, it's not going to rock or move. Where it touches, where it holds.
So
how are you thinking about that, Jeff?
Well, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And sometimes some of the sides of the more antique tools have issues with them. And I don't know, so far the 3 points seem to work. I believe other folks are doing that as well. Some other guides do that as well. I think it's a necessary feature of a guide that's going to side clamp.
Yeah, that was one of the problems I had with the early prototypes, is because it has this large flat surface on the other side, which seems like it would be better, but because it's 2 parallel surfaces, if there's any variance in the metal or anything like that, it just would never clamp correctly. And this does not hold as well as 3 points of contact. The 3 points of contact just lock it in place, whereas this was very slippery. The iron just would not stay in place.
all right, can you talk some more about the benefits of sharpening at a right angle versus perpendicular?
Yeah. Actually, let me see. Yeah, why not? I'm going to show, I got the microscope here. It just takes me a second to set it up.
Can I ask Jeff a question while you do that?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, okay. Jeff, on yours, can you show how to line up the close up of the pins and how you would line them up again?
Sure. So we've got 2 pins on this side and 1 pin here, and the back of the tool is registering off the rods. Get my hands out of the way so folks can see. So every plane blade and every bench chisel, every chisel has a flat back. That's always your register point. It doesn't matter what the top is, what's happening here. None of this matters. So you're always registering off the back. If you look around, yep, everything has a flat back to do that. So that's your register point. And your grip point are the 3 small dowels. I don't have the best camera here. 3 pins in there, so you've got 3 points of contact. And as James is setting up, so what we're doing is, when we go 90 degrees, obviously the scratch pattern is parallel with the cutting edge. And I don't know exactly what's going on there, but I'm hoping to see the scratch pattern, what that yields when James shows us what's going on.
Just a moment here.
I don't think it'll be a negative, but if you were scratching in a traditional manner, you're actually forming a toothed edge if you go very, very fine. And it works well, but now we're going to be parallel to the edge.
I'm just making sure I get an edge that I can show. So just a moment here. Do you have a question for Jeff? Why?
Not really.
Yeah.
You got any other projects you're working on, Jeff?
Oh, no, nothing. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. There's a pile of planes behind me. You can get a glance. Stuff's underway. And there's other stuff.
You want to give a sneak peek
Kind
of
of
the
how
next
I
item?
work. Okay, so I'm hoping you guys might be interested in making rulers and story sticks. I'm a huge fan of not measuring when I woodwork. Very similar to James. So we're gonna make a table with 4 legs. I lay out everything on that first leg, and I transfer those marks to the other 3 legs on a table with 4 legs, where my mortises are, where everything's going to go, where my tapers start, whatever I'm working on, and that's a story stick. It's a one-time use story stick, but it tells me what's going on. I'm not going to take measurements and go. If I take a marking gauge and I mark something, that's a story stick. That's going to continue throughout and to do that. And it's a great way of working. So ruler / story stick / straight edge. Back, Lovekin made, this is going to be difficult to see. Lovekin made these. This is I picked up off eBay. It's got a hook to it. And it's got a whole bunch of numbers on it. And my idea is to sell the ends. And you guys, I got two sizes. You guys can do stuff and make some stuff that you'll need. Now, you ready, James? Should I keep going?
Yeah, no, I'm ready for it. Why don't you flip over? Sorry. Here we're gonna, don't. Can you take your feet off there? So this is, you can see the scratch. Walking around the concrete. This is me walking around on the concrete floor. So here you can see the scratch pattern coming in, and the very edge. I left the burr on there, so that whole fuzzy edge on there is floppy burr. Let me bring my hand up in here. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, there's the serrations in my fingertip.
You need to moisturize.
But you can see how all of those scratches come out, and they basically end up creating a serrated edge on the iron. So I'm going to flip it around and then turn it 90 degrees and show you the difference on how that comes. But for this, I'll show you my setup time in this. That on there, a little bit of movement. And now, put this plate, let's go 90 degrees. Helps if I flip the plate the right direction. see if that's enough. There we go.
No, and Bob's your uncle?
Yeah, yeah. So let me bring this in here and see how close we can get. This microscope is always the fun part to set up. And now, zoom in. Nope, zoom out.
Turn yourself about. Zoom in.
Okay, can you hit the 3?
Ooh, yes.
Okay, and here you can see, let me get just a little bit cleaner focus. Sorry for the shaky. Oh, almost. Nope, other way. There we go. So now you can see in here that shiny spot all up at the tip. That's the burr. And when that comes off, you have a really nice smooth edge running all the way across there rather than all of the serrations sticking out. So going at 90 degrees, you get an actual cleaner surface on a coarser stone. So you actually get a nice edge that lasts a little bit longer because it doesn't have all those fingers sticking off that actually can snap off in the grain. And it's one of those interesting things that I never really thought about until I started sharpening on concrete. And if I run with the scratch patterns 90 degrees to the edge of the iron, I can't get it sharp on concrete really easily. It takes a lot of work, and then I have to really work it down on the strop. But if I run it so that the scratch pattern is along the edge, I can do it on the roughest concrete and quickly hit it on the strop, and I get a nice, clean, sharp edge. And you don't have to worry about how fine a grit you go if your edge is a line rather than a bunch of fingers sticking out. So, different thoughts. What other questions we got?
I see a spreadsheet coming out.
No.
Yeah, maybe. No, that was one of the interesting things I ran into though. When testing the sharpness, the serration would actually, it would dull out to the point that, how do I explain this? I had to be very, very careful with if I ran it with the scratch patterns running along the edge, because it would easily slide on the string as I was testing it. And I would get this crazy sharp edge, like a 40. Steel can't get to 40. Steel does not exist at 40. But I would hit 40 because I slid slightly on there. Whereas the serrated edge, there was absolutely no way I could slide because it would grab the string and hold itself in place. It was just kind of one of those interesting things when I was testing it. I had to change up my apparatus to make sure there was no horizontal movement when testing it. So yeah, the one thing I would love to test on that is if you do have it that way, does it push easier if you skew the plane a little bit? I don't know. Spreadsheets ahoy. What other questions we got?
I don't have any more necessarily related to the topic.
Are there any for Jeff?
Not that I see specifically.
Well, as Sarah's looking for more questions, these do come with instructions. I'm starting to use them on horizontal water stones, powered water stones. It works sharp. And I've even got it set up so I can use it on a CBN wheel, the side of a CBN wheel, all one setup. I do my rough grinding. I'm a 25 to then my secondary bevels. So I'm finding use for it there as well. So maybe you guys can, I'm gonna need feedback. I need feedback.
Can you flip it over to mine? Sorry. Just when you start getting typing. Yeah, he had it set up so that it can register on its side and sets it down on a plate, and then that allows it to rotate and the edge to then touch up against the side of a CBN wheel. That's an interesting idea. I might have to get one to try it. But yeah, I was interested to try it to see how you were hooking it into the work sharp. That's kind of
the work sharp has a removable guide on it. I'm going to take that off and make a platform to use it on the work sharp. I have a CBN wheel on a work sharp, so I can do that as well, and still use the guide, and then actually go right to a stone from there and not even ever change the setup. So it needs more experimenting. I'm experimenting with all these things. I also have a Japanese water stone grinder that I remove the water stone from and put a piece of glass on, and I'm experimenting with the diamond embedded PSA paper to see how that works as well. So experimenting, having fun. No spreadsheets, sorry guys.
So we've had 2 questions related to stropping.
okay.
One is, does stropping need to be done in the same direction? The other is, do you have to strop the side since the burr would be on one end or both? For example, turn the iron on its side.
The burr is not on the end; it's still in the same place. So even though you're cutting with it parallel to the edge, your burr still comes out on the tip. So it's the exact same thing, the exact same place. There isn't any change on the burr. Just because you're changing orientation, it still comes out the same place. And for me, the strop is less about polishing. It's more about just taking the burr off as gently as possible. I know other people are going to do it differently because I don't use the strop as a method to clean up the edge when I'm in the middle of working. I'd rather just take it back to the stone and sharpen it. But that's different for me. What about you, Jeff?
I do things a smidge differently. I will grind to 25 and then go to my finest stone and put a secondary bevel on, and then I'm done. I don't strop, and that's what works for me. A little less things. I've got all sorts of other stones, but I don't use it. This is a 8,000 king water stone, getting kind of thin, but from the grinder to this, one day I was in a real hurry and I used to go through many steps of the stones for my secondary bevel, and I just didn't have time. I really needed to get something done and I needed a sharp tool, and 5 or 6 passes and I was just amazed what my edge was, and I've been doing that ever since. It's been a long time. So that's kind of what I do.
That was one of the things that really kind of interested me with the survey we did, is how many people actually do a secondary bevel. That surprised me because I don't do that, but it was something like 60% of the people actually use a secondary bevel. And with this, if you want a secondary bevel because it's side by side, all you have to do is rather than having one piece that it's sliding on, just put a second one on there. It raises it up just a hair, and you can do a couple passes and get a secondary bevel. I don't know. How do you do that?
I set up for a secondary bevel. If I'm freehand sharpening, I register my grinding angle, which is 25 degrees, come up an appropriate amount, and I'm sharpening. I don't measure, don't do anything, just experience, comes up a smidge, and I've got my secondary bevel. And I'm going from a grinding wheel for my primary to an 8,000 grit stone, and I'm done. That's it. I don't strop, and I get a phenomenal edge that way.
Oh, and as a side note, can you flip that back?
Oh, yeah.
For those of you wanting to learn sharpening, Jeff is actually doing a class with Plain Wellness. When is that coming up? Do you remember?
That's going to be the 10th or 11th Saturday, whichever the Saturday is in May.
May.
10th, I think it might be the 11th or the 10th. I need a calendar, sorry. But I'm doing that with Jamie Harpster and Plain Wellness, yes.
Oh, that's
And
right.
I'll show you some of my
You're not gonna
tricks,
lose
how I
anything.
register, what I do, body position. There's a bunch of ideas there that I think folks can use.
So if you go to Plain Wellness website, you can sign up on there. Yeah, I'm going to be
Yes,
out
you
your
can.
way that weekend. Have to see about that.
Just so everybody remembers, it's the day before Mother's Day. So if you're going to do that.
Yeah, I won't be here for Mother's Day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I'll actually be out in Massachusetts for MWTCA meet that weekend. So,
Actually, that's in Brookline, New Hampshire, James.
well, there's 2 days in Massachusetts and then 1 day up in New Hampshire. So it's Friday.
No,
Saturday.
2 days in New Hampshire and 1 day at
the other way.
Athol,
Sorry.
Massachusetts. Starrett.
The other way around.
Let's try to get James to the right spot.
Google knows where it's at.
I've been trying for 18 years.
Yes. Sarah, tell me, I'm going to visit with him. What do I have to do?
I don't know who needs more watching. All right, so one other question that's come up is, will the different blade metals affect the new jig?
No. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, no. I mean, this is a Lake Erie Toolworks blade, and it's the stones. Some of the blades like different stones better. That I can tell you, but the jig, no. Jig will work fine.
Yeah, I've been using it. The CPM MagnaCut, the A1, O2, excuse me, O1, A2. I've done some of the antiques. I've even done the whatever crazy steel that Zenwu uses, and they're crazy irons. Yeah, does them all.
I think that's similar to the MagnaCut, isn't it?
My guess is it's something very similar to it. I mean, in the sides it clamps onto, it's actually titanium.
Is it really?
Yeah, have you seen these? Here,
Yes, I have. I didn't realize they were titanium on this.
well, they come with, you can get regular steel or titanium, but they're, here. Oh, I'm not going to be able to show it because it's on Microscope. But the main body is, on this one, is all titanium, and then the actual cutting edge is a plate of something special. They don't list what it is, but it acts like the MagnaCut, so I'm guessing it's something similar. But I don't know.
All right, so we had a question of, how does the brass wear?
So these are bronze, and it doesn't wear because it's never touched by anything. You have hardened steel guides here and here that are on it, and these are stainless steel pins, and this is stainless steel rods. So the bronze is simply a weight to carry everything. It's just a medium to use. Could be a block of wood, could be a block of aluminum, could be anything. Using bronze because the foundry is good and I like working in bronze. You can also shine these up and make them pretty.
Here, can you turn?
Yeah, hang on.
Here, I'll give everyone a close-up on this, so you can see on the ends of these. These are hardened steel, and that's actually the wear point on there. So.
And the pins, the three small pins are stainless steel, and stainless steel is harder than regular steel.
That's these two here and one back over here. Cool. I think we're
Okay.
about out of time.
We have young Gavin that has had a question the whole time. It's not directly related.
Okay, what's Gavin got?
Okay, let me find it. He wants to know, have you ever worked on a Black & Decker Workmate workbench?
Yes, I have many times.
Yes.
I grew up on one of those.
Gavin's 12, so that's...
They are a great bench for making a real bench on.
All right.
What about you, Jeff?
Yes, I've had them, and you can do a lot of things with the older ones. I think are more sturdy than the newer ones, so maybe try to find an antique or something. But it's yeah. Hey, kitchen table has been a bench for me. So it's what you have, or a countertop has been a bench when I didn't have a bench. So keep woodworking. It doesn't need to be fancy at all.
When I first got into hand tools, for me it was a folding table. But I talk to people regularly who are in apartments in like downtown Chicago, and they build a small bench top that they literally clamp to their kitchen table and work on that, or countertop.
Sure.
Cool. Well, I think
Many of the Japanese folks sit on the floor and
Yeah.
and use their feet.
exactly. Cool. I think we'll wrap it up. Anything else you want to say?
No, just thank you to James. Thanks, Sarah. This is awesome. You listen to my ideas and keep me going. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for making me look at trying new things. This has been kind of a fun journey for me. Cool. I think I'll do it.
When's our next live, potentially?
I don't know. Probably not next week or the week after, because we're going to be gone as a family this weekend, and then I'm going to be in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. I'm flying into Boston. That's what I'm thinking. I'll be that next weekend, and so I don't know if we'll have time to do it after that, but stay tuned. I want to do at least one a month. I'd like to do 2 a month, but we'll see how it comes out. So, cool.
All right.
I think I'll do it. Sorry for all the technical difficulties, but until next time, have a wonderful day.